Thank you so much. You can have your seats. Can we celebrate Teacher Lydia? She's so committed. She's just dashing now to Mavuno Kids where she teaches our children. And if you're a parent and your kids go to Mavuno Kids, you realize the good work that they are doing. My daughter comes home every day and says, this is what we learned, and she recites the memory verse. Our teachers are doing a good job. If you have children that are between the age of 3 or 4, actually 3 all the way to 12, then Mavuno Kids is a space for them. It's on my left, which is your right, just before you exit the gate, there's a building there. Please make sure you take your children there. I've seen the benefits of my children being discipled, or my child actually, my daughter right now, being discipled by the teachers in Mavuno Kids. And so karibuni sana, please turn to your neighbor and tell them, welcome to church. Now some of you don't have neighbors, please get yourself a neighbor, get yourself a neighbor, get yourself a neighbor, we will wait, get yourself a neighbor, there we go, look at that. And then if you're seated at the far back and there are seats ahead of you, please, occupy the front seats. In this church, we say we occupy front and center. Tell your neighbor, front and center. Yeah, we occupy front and center. We don't sit at the extreme end because this is a church where we turn ordinary people to fearless influencer of society. Who is that who is fearing to sit at the front? Who is that guy passing around at the back? But karibuni sana everyone. My name is Pastor Godwin Mutai, one of the pastors in Mavuno Church, and I serve under the authority of Pastor M and Pastor Caro, who are our senior pastors. Can we celebrate them in their absentia? As I mentioned last week, just as a practical takeout of the sermon that Pastor Phoebe brought us, I mentioned and I said that if it was not for Pastor M and Pastor Caro, I don't think I would be a pastor. In fact, I don't think I'd be as discipled as I am right now. And so we celebrate them for their faithfulness, their commitment. This church has been in existence for 19 years, Mavuno movement for 19 years. And to take one church and one instruction that God gave you to plant a church for the unchurched and to multiply it 56 times, it takes the anointing and the hand of God. But it also takes commitment. Yeah, for those of you who are in business, or for those of you who are parents, or for those of you who've been involved in any leadership opportunity or capacity, you know how much it takes from you to do something and to lead people. These pastors of ours have led people they've led thousands of us for the past 19 years, and we honor them. They are truly our shepherds in this movement. We celebrate them. And I'm personally grateful to them because without them and without the Kilonzis as well, I wouldn't be a pastor today. And so welcome to church, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today. This week we learned something interesting at family night. I don't know how many people are in family night, but we learned something interesting at family night. We learned about the 3 levels of belonging. Let me see how many people remember the 3 levels of belonging. Number 1 was enjoyment. And then the second one was serving. And then the third one was aim to be a shepherd or to become a pastor. There are some people here who are just saying, oh yes. Pastor. Oh yes. So 3 levels of belonging to anything. And by the way, anything we teach in this church and in this movement, you can apply it anywhere. You can even say 3 levels of belonging to your organization. 3 levels of belonging to your biological family. 3 levels of belonging to that relationship. Yeah, and the first principle we learned was the principle of enjoyment. And we said you need to enjoy 3 things. How many things? 3 things. The first thing you need to enjoy is? True. But that would be the 4th one, Pastor Phoebe. Sorry? Now when you come to church, 3 things that you get to enjoy. Number 1 is worship. 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 The first one was worship. You need to enjoy your worship. And our worship team is a fantastic worship team. And as you can see, even him is enjoying his you need to enjoy worship. That's why you need to come here before 9 a.m. so that you position yourself to enjoy worship. By the way, always tell yourself, I will not allow my neighbor to out-worship me. Me, I've determined that, by the way. It's not a competition, but I will worship God with all my heart and with all my energy. And so the first thing you need to enjoy is worship. The second thing you need to enjoy was community. The second thing was community. You need to enjoy community. That's why we say you need to look for a neighbor so that you enjoy that person. Can you imagine you're seated next to someone that you will be next to for the next maybe 1.5 hours? That's why, see, at least enjoy that person. Don't be sitting there and then you don't enjoy the person. Determined to. By the way, this enjoyment is not something that you come and find. We were told that this enjoyment is something you bring. So don't say, why is this neighbor not entertaining me? Entertain your neighbor. Enjoy your neighbor by bringing the joy. Enjoy worship by bringing the joy into that time of worship. David said, I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. And that's the joy that you bring. He was glad even before he went to the house of God. So bring joy to the house of God. Then the third part was enjoy your pastor. Come on, somebody. Now, we are not saying this because we are people who are seeking validation as your pastors. I want to clear that. We are not seeking validation. By the way, we are well validated. You remember when Jesus, before he started his ministry, God said, this is my son, whom I love and with whom I am pleased, well pleased. Before he even started ministry, he was validated. So we are not seeking validation. We are already validated. I can assure you that. But the reason why you need to enjoy your pastor is because it changes your posture and attitude towards that man of God or that woman of God enough for you to receive what they are saying. Sometimes when you don't enjoy someone and you're like, what are you saying? You pastor, what are you talking about? You pastor. When you have that attitude, even whatever blessing they give out to receive. Yeah, they won't force you and say, you must be blessed. You have to receive. You have to posture yourself as someone who wants to receive the blessing. So you need to enjoy your pastor so that you get whatever blessing that comes through the pastor. Alright? You get the blessing. And there is I've said this before, there is grace that is released every season and every series that we go through in Mavuno. Yeah. When we go through any series, we went through a sermon series, You, Yes, You, and we were talking about how to bring change and influence your society, and you were taught by Pastor Phoebe. And there's grace that was released through Pastor Phoebe that I hope none of us missed. Yeah, because sometimes you can be like, Pastor Phoebe, this is my sister. But then you fail to understand this is a pastor that carries the grace of God. This is a pastor that is carrying something that God has determined that will bless you. Enjoy your pastor, somebody. And so how to enjoy a pastor is when the pastor says a point, you say amen. You stand up and you shout and you say, yes, please, pastor. Okay, enjoy. So enjoyment is the first level of belonging. You belong to a church. You belong to this church by enjoying. Now when you enjoy, you don't come frowning and saying, sasa uko dark leo aje. Na mbona iko baridi hivi? Enjoy because this is your house, this is your church. The second level we talked about serving. Now, just like in your homes, you've come from your homes right now. And there are things that you had to do before you get out of the house. Some of you probably you needed to, of course, personal hygiene and all that. Some of you who have children, you needed to prepare your children. You needed to prepare your spouse, maybe ulimpigia passing war or whatever it is. You needed to take some steps before you stepped out of the house. And the reason why you needed to own that responsibility is because you belong to that house. Make sense? Now for me, I can't wait for my neighbor to come and prepare my daughter to come to church. Ati sasa mimi nangoja neighbor, mbona amechelewa leo? Sikuja brush meno ya msichana wangu ndio twende nini? No, it's my personal responsibility. Now in church, we serve because it is our personal responsibility. This is our church. By the way, look around you. I want you to look around you right now. There is no one else that is going to serve in this church but the people in this church. There is no external person. We will never hire someone from outside there to come and help us with sound. We will never hire external teachers to come and teach our children. The solutions for this house are found in this house. You need to serve. Tell your neighbor you need to serve. Yeah, and this church is, we normally say this church is pastor-led, but it is associate-driven. Come on, somebody. Yeah. The engine of this church is associates, the people that serve in this church. And as our pastors, we have the privilege of serving you. We have the privilege of discipling you so that you can start engaging in your area of influence by even starting in the church, in serving in church. So if you're not someone who serves, if you don't serve in any department, then you can sign up at the back and you will be shown where you can serve. But also, I normally say this, sometimes maybe you come and you say, I don't see where I can put my skills to use. Then go and register and say, by the way, I have a very unique set of skills that I want to bring to this church. Come on, somebody. Yeah. For instance, we need DJs. When we have DJ-led worship, we need to have DJs. Yeah. If maybe you've been wondering, Mona Tuna dancers is each church. Start a dance group. Come on, somebody. Start an actors group. Do something. Find something that you can engage in and serve in this church. And then the final thing we talked about as the third level of enjoyment is what did he say? Aim to be a pastor or aim to be a shepherd. Now, all of us were created, and Pastor Emma has told us this before, all of us were created to be sheep and to be shepherd. Yeah. When you say the Lord is my shepherd, it means you're a sheep. Does that make sense? But also, he talks and he tells in Jeremiah, he tells the Israelites, woe to you shepherds, because you've ignored or you failed to take care of my sheep. So we are all created to become sheep and to become shepherds. In Matthew chapter 28, the Bible tells us, Jesus, before he ascends to heaven, he gives the instruction and says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me, therefore go and make disciples. Basically saying, go and be a shepherd to sheep. Yeah. Go and make disciples of all nations. By the way, that instruction was not to pastors, it was not to bishops, reverends, deacons, it was to every disciple. Yeah. Jesus tells, by the way, this is not a sermon, nimeanza kidogo to preamble. It's something that I felt on my heart for a while. But Jesus talks to one of his disciples, Peter, in John chapter 21. He tells Peter, Peter, do you love me? And in fact, there's a whole song that Mavuno Worship has written about that. Do you love me? Then feed my lambs. Do you love me? Take care of my sheep. By the way, you cannot come here and say, I love you, Lord. Can you sing that song? Hey, for your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. Bas, you sing that song and then you are told, now you need to be a shepherd. You're like, wait, hold up, are we doing the jokes? By the way, Jesus says the marker of love for me is you need to be a shepherd. Tell your neighbor you need to be a shepherd. In fact, ask them, do you love Jesus? Then you must be a shepherd. Yeah, and I'm not saying now you need to go and lead 50 people. You can start with 2 people. Just like literally, even one person. Yeah, you're with one person in your house, you can start by saying, every day I'm going to determine to teach you something that I'm learning. So I'm going to share with you. Let's start with John 3:16. What are you hearing? What will you do about it? Now let us pray. That is shepherding. So it's not to say now quit your job and now go and be an evangelist somewhere and live in the desert like John the Baptist. That's not what we are saying. We are saying on your day-to-day, determine that you're going to teach someone what you're learning and that you're going to take care of them. Jesus says, take care of my sheep, feed my lambs. How do you feed the lamb? The lambs, you feed the lambs through God's word. How do you take care of them? You visit them and you know what's going on in their lives. And how can I support you in whatever you are doing? So 3 levels of belonging. Enjoyment, number 1. Number 2 is serve. Number 3 is aim to be a shepherd or a pastor. Welcome to church, everyone. For our visitors, karibuni sana. You just came in when you were having a very interesting family conversation, but you're welcome. We are starting a new sermon series that is called Wired for This. I'm so excited for this. I'm really excited about this sermon series. But before we start, I want to ask a question. And I want you to ask this question to your neighbor. Again, if you don't have a neighbor, get a neighbor. The question is, who is a musician, dead or alive, that you would love to watch live in a concert? Like if you were to choose, I want to watch a concert by someone, dead or alive, all factors held constant, who would that musician be? Hata kama wewe si mtu wa muziki, just maybe a poet basi. Awesome. Let me ask you to shout out what your neighbor is saying. Just one name.
Obama.
Jay-Z, Michael Jackson,
Obama.
Sissy Winans, Whitney Houston, Tyler Cobbs, or Tasha Cobbs. Michael Jackson. The people on this side don't look like they love music. They're too serious. Who are these ones who are too serious? Shout it out. Whitney. Whitney must be Whitney Houston. Okay. Someone else? Alice Kimanzi. Mary Sherry. Let me tell you. You guys, let's start the concert right now. We are ready. You know, this week I did a small survey. I asked a few guys, even in this church, and some of my friends that are not from this church, and I got a lot of answers, just as we've shared a mix, a range from Jay-Z to, can you imagine Jay-Z to Sissy Winans, a range from Michael Jackson to Alice Kimanzi. But there are names that stood out that I'll share a few of them. Names included Beyonce on the list, Rema from Nigeria, Whitney Houston, Party Next Door. This was a Gen Z, and who told me this? Bruno Mars and Chris Brown, and not Chris Brown from Elevation Church, Chris Brown, the Chris Brown. These are the names that featured. But then I had my more saved friends that mentioned names like Nathaniel Bassey. So I told them, hiya Bassey. And then Alice Kimanzi, like has been mentioned here, and Joe L. Barnes, if you guys know that guy from Miracles and Miracles, a million little miracles. Meanwhile, there's another category of real Christians. These were the saved ones. Now the real Christians went deep and went Ron Kenoli, Angela Chibalonza, Johnny McClacken, Bahati Bukuku, Munushi. Now look at your neighbor and ask your neighbor, do you want to redo your answer? You want to give a different answer? You know, regardless, there were some amazingly gifted musicians that were on this list. And of course, as you've heard, one of them was Michael Jackson. A few of us have said, even my brother here has said Michael Jackson. Which brother is this one? Now, even among the most gifted musicians of all time, there was something special about Michael Jackson. From his look, well, he changed his look and he became something else. From his look to his dance move, you know, this is the guy who introduced Mono. Please don't tell me, let me preach. You're enjoying me too much. His dance moves, his electrifying performances. This guy had performances that he knew how to throw down. He was one of those artists where his fans had more than just a casual love for him. It bordered on hysteria. It felt like, hey, Kwani, what's going on? It feels like this guy is doing some magic tricks on people. His concerts would be sold out weeks, if not months in advance. You had to buy his tickets months ahead of time. The media and the general public were just so fixated on Michael Jackson and every move that he had. His events were so huge. People would be in tears sometimes when they saw him and would regularly faint if touched by him or even looked in their direction. And I have a video for that. For those doubting Thomases who are Gen Zs who never knew Michael Jackson, because they were pretty young when Michael Jackson was a thing. Let me show you a video. I think, yes, look at this video. Look at Michael Jackson. He's just looking at, he's singing yet. He's not even singing yet. His aura, like, look at that. Hata hajaanza kuimba. He's just been invited on stage, not even singing. People are fainting. Look at that. And then he removes his glasses. Ndio mumuone vizuri. Let me tell you guys, and his concerts of course were not as cheap or affordable. So imagine even here in Kenya, you pay let's say 10,000 shillings for a regular ticket. And then you faint before he starts. And then you are carried out. Me, I'll be like, me return my money. Well, let's tell you that's so crazy. You know, back in the day when I was in campus, I watched one of his concerts where he was performing and people were fainting, and because the concert hall was so packed, they had to pass people on top of people's heads. Yeah, like this is over your head. I think it would be fair to say that many people worshipped Michael Jackson. It would be fair to say, because you can't explain that. Someone has not even opened his mouth. But there's a really powerful truth that these fans of Michael Jackson demonstrate, and it is this: all humans are worshippers. Tell your neighbor, all humans are worshippers. It's actually the thing that distinguishes us from animals. It's the thing that gives us a difference or a differentiating factor from animals. The thing that differentiates you from that dog that you really love is that all humans are worshippers. I'd like to say that apes can do so many things that humans can. And I don't know if there are any fans of Planet of the Apes. How many people are fans? In fact, I'm looking forward to watching this movie. I've not watched it yet, but I've watched I think 2 or 3 of them, but I've not watched it. So you've watched it, eh? You know, apes can do so many things. In fact, there are some apes that have been taught to use sign language. All right, and but no scientist on National Geographic, Nat Geo, has ever discovered apes or monkeys building an altar so that they can worship. Yeah, there's no monkey business. Like, you cannot find them now saying, "I love you, Lord." That's the thing that differentiates us from monkeys and from apes. That's why I strongly dispute with the theory of evolution. You can't tell me that I came from a monkey mouse. This guy cannot worship. You cannot come from a monkey and then suddenly you want to worship and you didn't want to worship. You know, does that make sense? He wants to start a DG. At least the monkey should have started a DG somewhere so that you tell me now, okay, yeah, you came from a monkey. And yet among humans, evidence of worship is found in all cultures. There's no culture that has no worship, both past and present. You know, we may not worship in a church building or worship someone like Michael Jackson, but I want to suggest to us, each of us, that there is something or someone that we give our devotion, our adoration, our reverence, and our time to. Yeah. There are some of us who are so passionate about sports. Any sports fans? Kwanza EPL has come back. Yeah. And you can see, of course, one of the biggest teams ever. Yes, right there. You should have made the slides for this summer. Why are you disputing and you didn't make the slides? Right. You see, as you can tell, people are already worshipping. They're like, no, Man U. But I want you guys to see something. Eh? This is so interesting. Look at this image. What are these guys doing? They are lifting up their hands and they are shouting at the top of their lungs. And then when Pastor Sherry comes and says, lift up your hands in worship. I love you, Lord. All my life you have. And then you're looking at your hand, when will you finish this? But now when it's EPL, you're like, yay! Come on, you Gunners! Glory, glory, Man United! These guys are worshipping. They just don't know that they are worshipping, but they are worshipping sports. And we are so passionate about these things, and especially about sports, that we easily even desert our families sometimes. And this is for guys majorly. That they easily desert their families, their friends sometimes. At certain times, they ditch work, they stay up late, have long, passionate debates about this conversation, and spend money to represent their favorite team. You could say that they worship sports. Do you know, last year we got the privilege of going to Berlin, and we were told, and some of us wanted to go and visit Borussia Dortmund's, what do we call, stadium. I don't even know the name of that stadium. That one. And we were told, if you want to watch a game this weekend, this, like literally now, let's say this is Sunday, you want to watch a game on Saturday, you needed to have bought your tickets like 6 months in advance, or paid for your membership for the entire year. And the membership is probably something like 48,000 Kenya shillings per month. That's how much people are devoted to these sports. And you're so passionate about this, you spend money on expensive jerseys, on expensive gear. You spend money on expensive packages to actually buy a DSTV package that will allow you to watch sports. All right? But sometimes maybe you don't have bundles to come for morning press. I'm sorry, I didn't want to go there. It's getting personal, eh? I didn't mean to go there, but it just came to me, it just occurred to me. But it's so interesting that there are some of us here who love our cars, or you love your car, or you love cars generally. You love cars so much, so much. In fact, there's someone who once said that when I buy my car and I park it outside the house, I'll occasionally be getting out of the house to just confirm, am I in a scare baridi? So maybe it's feeling cold. Eh? Can I get it in? Can I wrap it in a blanket? When you find someone standing there and say, hey, Aki Mungu wewe, kumbuka watu wa Uganda. But there are people who spend hundreds of thousands of dollars investing in vehicles and upgrading their vehicles. And then once they are done with this vehicle, they want to go to the next one. And they spend hours each week working on it, cleaning it, waxing it. You could say they worship their car. All right? There are some of us here who spend a lot of our time at work to the exclusion of everything else. We can conclude that they actually worship their business or career. Yeah. Now, there are many atheists as well who worship the human intellect as the ultimate authority. Many corporate leaders who worship their career or business progress as the ultimate pursuit above everything else. Many people, both rich and poor, worship money as the thing that they will do anything to get and anything to keep. Many of us are keen on their looks. Kuchapa luku. Luku lazima ichapwe. That drip is eternal. Yeah, drip is eternal. Yeah, drip knows no weather. What are you saying? And so you can end up worshiping personal appearance. Many lonely people worship relationships. They can't wait to get into that space. Many academics worship knowledge. Many modern people worship entertainment and experience as the thing that is of ultimate importance to them. Now, left to our own devices, every human being, every man and woman, will find something or someone to idolize, to give their complete devotion and adoration to, and to exalt and elevate above everything else in their lives. Left to our own. Every one of us worships something or someone. Tell your neighbor, everyone worships something or someone. We sort of can't help it. This desire to live for and be devoted to something is hardwired in our DNA. It's almost as though we were created for worship. It's almost as though we were created for worship. Now I'm not saying that it's wrong to be passionate about sports. I'm not saying that it's wrong to be passionate about, say, politics or career or business or ambition or commitment. I'm not saying It's wrong to pursue things with that kind of ambition and commitment, or to chase after financial goals with zeal and passion. That's what I'm saying. They are gifts. These things actually are gifts that God has given us for our enjoyment. And if you attend Mavuno Church, you've attended Mavuno Church long enough, you will hear sermons about many, if not all, of these gifts. The point I'm trying to make is that it is extremely easy for us to take something that is good and turn it into an idol that rivals everything else in our lives. Yeah. It's good to end up, it's easy to end up worshiping the gift and not the giver. Yeah. You end up worshiping, so God has provided you with all those gifts, and then, can you imagine if someone gave you a gift? A wrapped gift here, it's your birthday, and this is a gift. And you turn your attention away from the one who gave you that gift, and you start saying, oh, what a wonderful gift. This one, kwanza nikiweka pale kwa room, it's going to be amazing. You don't even say thank you to the person who gave you. That's how we treat God sometimes when he gives us gifts, and we end up worshiping the gift and not the giver. There's a musician and author called Harold Best who says it this way. He says, and there's this quote that he says, there's no one in this world who is not at this moment at worship in one way or another, consciously or unconsciously, formally or informally, passively or passionately. For you see, the desire to worship was created in us, not as an add-on, but as an intrinsic part of our very nature. We were created for worship. And throughout the Bible, we encounter a God who not only created us to worship him, but he actually demands that we do so. For instance, in Exodus chapter 20, verse 2 to 4, he says, I am the Lord your God who rescued you from the land of Egypt. You must not have any other gods but me. You must not make for yourselves an idol of any kind or an image of anything in the heavens or on the earth or in the sea. You must not bow down to them or worship them, for I am the Lord your God. I am jealous God, who will not tolerate your affection for any other God. Clearly, God is deadly serious about worshiping and worshiping him alone. Only him. What he's saying here is that, and in other many passages, he's saying that we must worship, and that we must worship him alone. He created us to worship and not to worship anything else but him alone. But have you ever wondered why? Why would the creator of the universe demand our worship? Is God some insecure being? Is he exposing some of his insecurities? Why does he demand us to worship him? Doesn't he have angels? In fact, the Bible says that he has angels, billions and billions of angels, that are at his disposal every day, worshiping him day and night, along with the 24 elders. So why does he demand mere humans who are so small compared to the vastness of the entire universe? Does he suffer from some self-esteem? Does he require daily reminders from us of just how great he is? That sometimes he can forget and say, okay, tell me. Oh, I'm so great. Oh, you stop, keep it coming. Have you ever known someone who was needy and you had to keep affirming them to keep them from getting depressed? Is that what's going on here when it comes to our worship of this God? Or is it just a big ego thing that is going on? Those of us who grew up in an era of big man African presidents, it's easy to think that that's what's going on here. Back then, like for instance in our country, back in even Moi's day, let me go back in history. Back in history. In Moi's time, and this is quick history for you Gen Zs. So maybe, kuna watu wako hapo kunywa maziwa ya Nyayo. Sami kukunywa maziwa ya Nyayo. Anyway, back then every business had to have a picture of the president, and even still to date. Every business has a picture of the president. They named everything in his honor. You had so many schools that are called Moi. Moi International, whatever. Even Kasarani Stadium was called Moi International Sports Center. Moi Girls. It's until I grew up and became an adult that I realized that there is no Moi Boys. Have you ever realized?
Moi Forces.
Wow, Moi Forces. Yeah, Moi Forces Academy at least. And then, but there's also Moi High School, Kabarak, which has both boys and girls. But there are so many schools. There's a school, let me tell you, there's a school in Rongai. Noel comes from Rongai. So occasionally when we go to Rongai, we pass by a school that is called this name, just for avoidance of doubt which Moi you are talking about. It's called Arap Moi Primary School. Just in case maybe you are thinking it stands for the Ministry of Information. No, Moi doesn't stand for me. It's Arap Moi Primary School. That's how public holidays were named after him. Roads, buildings, schools, stadiums, monuments, and their faces were everywhere. Local news. Can I tell you something about local news? Do you know that when KBC was KBC back in the day, when the news was starting, it started with Rais Daniel Torotich Arap Moi, Leo Hii. Before, sometimes even he didn't even do anything significant, but you still have to mention that Rais Daniel Torotich Arap Moi, Leo Hii alikuwa State House. That's it. Now, moving on now to an accident that actually claimed lives. So there was no breaking news that comes before Rais Daniel Torotich Arap Moi. It was just crazy. And all this were happening in that era. And there's something also interesting that used to happen. Whenever he passed by a street, you would line up children in school uniform to come and sing to him. All right? And then he would stop, and then, you remember he used to have a rungu, he would stop and then he would dance like this with his rungu. And then suddenly 100,000 imepeanwa hivyo too. Ama he donates a bus or something. Moi would do that. And it's so interesting that happened in that generation. All right? How many of you actually remember those days? Maybe I'm just talking to myself here with a few of my millennial friends. Yes? Yeah, some of us remember that. Some of us actually maybe benefited from that, including the milk that we drank. Eh? So anyhow, for many of us, we think that this is exactly what God is after. That He is the center of attention. He's mindless. He's mindless, and then his uncritical subjects have to line up in the highways of earth, telling Him how great He is. Some of us think that's what God is trying to achieve here. I mean, why would God command our worship? Yeah. Why wouldn't He say, if you feel like it, I don't want to rush you, but if you feel like worshiping me, come and worship me, so that it's coming straight from your heart? Why does He say He commands our worship? I'm so glad that that's a question that we are asking today. And that's a very important question as we start this new sermon series that we'll be doing in the month of September called Wired for This: How Worship Can Change Your Reality. Through this series, we'll be exploring what worship is, why it is central to who we are as human beings, and why understanding it could actually transform our lives. Now, there are many ways that we can worship God. For instance, we can worship God through prayer. And we do worship God through prayer. And we can worship God through a lifestyle of obedience and following His instruction. In fact, your whole life, when you carry yourself, that is worship. That is worship. That's why Paul says in Romans chapter 12, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to the Lord. Present yourself as a worship to God. But this month we'll focus about one of the key ways that Christians worship God today. And that is through music and song. And we'll be learning from the Bible character David, who later on became a king. He was a prolific songwriter, singer. He was a musician, used to play the harp. He composed numerous songs of worship to God. Majority of the book of Psalms is written by David. In fact, the longest book of Psalms, who knows the longest book of Psalms? Psalm 119. And that longest book of Psalms is written in the Hebrew alphabet. So like you would say, for instance, now in our English alphabet, A. So A, he wrote a song for A. Wrote a song for B, he wrote a verse for C, all the way to Z, for now the Hebrew alphabet. That's the longest chapter of Psalms. And I don't know, someone confirmed to me, does it go to 170 or 73? 176 verses. In fact, the longest chapter of the Bible. That's the book of Psalms, written by David. Now, the life of David is one of the best documented and also the most dramatic of any character in the Bible. Yeah, it's so dramatic. And yet he lived for 70 years. Now, if he had lived like Methuselah for 900 plus years, the life of David was just so interesting. From approximately 14 years old to when he died at 50, over 55 years of his life are archived in the Bible. One of the most documented characters in the Bible. We first encounter him as a teen around 14, 15 thereabout. He's an unassuming lastborn who tends to his father's sheep. That's why you need to aim to be a shepherd. You may be ignoring his shepherding and then the next thing one night, who are the shepherds here who are going to become kings? And so he tended to his father's sheep while his brothers, older brothers, were serving in the military. One blink later, this young boy is facing the terrifying 10-foot Philistine giant Goliath. Yeah, that guy. Goliath was 10 feet. You guys, I'm about 5 feet 5. Of course, I'm very short. Is taller than? Bradley. Yes, Bradley is 8 feet. Now, 8 feet of Bradley, and then you add 2 more feet. That guy was tall. He was weighing about 264 kilograms. Yeah, and he was still someone who was fit. So like he was not fat. He was a military guy. 264 kilograms of muscle is not fat. But David, interestingly, defeats this Goliath. David was a small boy, but he defeats this guy who had been an experienced giant, an experienced military guy. Almost overnight, he goes from a remarkable teen, someone you would actually ignore. In fact, his father ignored him when Prophet Samuel came to anoint a king. His father ignored him. But then, shortly after, almost overnight, this guy becomes the toast of the town. He becomes the one that is being celebrated. The women even were singing his praises. And Pastor M composed this informal song that he sang. David killed his... Saul has killed his thousands. David his 10,000s. Hey, Saul has killed his 1,000. David his 10,000. That's what the women were singing. And he was being carried across town and they're celebrating him. The king gets so insecure. They're like, hey, he's like, this guy is coming after my throne. And he's so furious about this that he tries to assassinate him. Not one time, but several times. In fact, close to how many years? Close to more than 20 years or so, he was trying to pursue David to kill him. And at the age of 17, between the age of 17 to 30, he lives a highly stressed life as a fugitive, on the run from the king, fleeing from one cave to another, one nation to another. Think about your childhood, and at the tail end of your childhood is snatched, and then you become a fugitive, and then you start running from country to country, escaping from this furious king. Yeah? Living away from his family and friends, he's becoming someone that is so isolated from the society, the shepherd boy who becomes the most wanted criminal back home. In those years, a band of men who did not abandon him were described as losers, vagrants, and misfits. In 1 Samuel chapter 22, verse 2, this band of men became his band of brothers that came alongside him and gathered around him and started to follow him. There were about 400 of them. Sometimes they were loyal, these 400 guys, but then sometimes they would want to kill David. There's a time they went to battle somewhere. This is the reason why they wanted to kill David. They went to battle somewhere, and then when they went to battle, they come back and they find that their women and their children had been killed. So they are so furious that they are like, this guy, because of following this guy, Masaibu, in a relationship or in friendship with someone, and you are like, since I became your friend, Masaibu tu zinanifuata. Simu imeibiwa, nimepigwa ngeta, nimesota, tumeshikwa, we've been arrested. What is going on? This guy, what's going on? And so these guys were so infuriated that they decided, we want to stone this guy. They wanted to kill David. But there was a time when they were so loyal to him until they were like, even if it means we will be outcast like you, we will follow him. These guys were just a mix of those two things. Eventually, King David becomes king. and goes on to win every major battle that he leads his army to, and leading to a time of peace and prosperity in Israel. But through those years, the drama never stopped. Drama doesn't stop. His own son engineered a coup and tried to kill him. You know, when you think that your friends are bad, then your son now is coming for you. And can you imagine? David has been running away from Saul for so long, and now when he's experiencing some peace after winning battles against his enemy, the one now that is causing him to run away is his own son. And David actually runs away because he doesn't want to fight his own son. Yeah, he doesn't want to kill his son. And I feel like he would have gotten that opportunity and he would have killed the son. But David decides, no, I can't kill my son. So his own son, so I'm just painting the picture of the drama in David's life. By the way, 70 years. I'm not talking about this guy who was 900 years. 70 years of his life that was very dramatic. There's another instance where he seduces and impregnates the wife of one of his elite soldiers. Guess what? Part of the 400 soldiers that fought for him and were outcast with him, part of those 400 was this guy, Uriah. And this guy goes and takes his wife. And while this elite soldier is fighting for him in the back. Think about this drama. He's taking the wife, and then to cover it up, he gets this poor friend of his murdered. David lived a dramatic life. In a moment of foolishness and pride, he went against God's wishes and calls for a census. And David calls for a census sort of to prove how powerful he was. So he calls for a census, and so it looks like something that is kawaii. I mean, he's a king. He wants to know how many people are in Israel. But God had instructed him not to call for that census. But then he does it anyway. As a result, God sends a plague that destroys how many people? Who knows? How many people are destroyed because of that plague? Bible scholars, let me tell you, let me teach you today so that you go and teach it to someone tomorrow morning and then you look like someone who has read the Bible cover to cover. The plague destroys 70,000 people because of one foolish decision that the king makes. Yeah. Talk about the weight of responsibility that is carried by a leader. Next time you see your leader, your pastor, your leader at work, your boss, respect them. Even our president. I know some of us, many of us disagree with his way of ruling, but respect the weight of the presidency. If you are given presidency for one day, hata is explode kichwa. But this guy makes a foolish decision, and 70,000 people in Israel are destroyed. In fact, 70,000 of his army, so the best in his time, the best people in his time that were defending the nation are destroyed. Now later on in his twilight years, he desired to build a temple for God. He desired and said, I want to build a temple for my God. But God, disappointed by him and the amount of bloodshed he had caused, he decides that no, you won't be the one to build, but I will honor your house and allow your son to build the temple instead. So he eventually dies at the age of 70 and handed over the throne to his son Solomon with instructions. So until his deathbed, David is still dramatic. So he's going to die, and then he gives instructions to King Solomon to execute some people. Huyu maliza. By kesho. In fact, he tells Solomon at some point, you are a wise man, you will know what to do. So it's like coming to tell your, for those who are dating or those who are married, the woman coming to tell the man, kuna mtu amenitusi huku nje, kuna mtu ameniita sijui nini, kuna mtu amefanya ABCD, I feel so disrespected, but I trust in you, you're a wise man, you know what to do. You immediately are like, hey, I have to prove my wiseness, my wisdom. It's sort of like you're giving an instruction without giving an instruction. You are a wise man, you know what to do. It's like if you've ever watched The Dictator, anyone who has ever watched The Dictator, the film, you just do this, and people will disappear. Comes and then he doesn't like you, he does this. And then his people will just grab you and you disappear. It is evident that David's life had more ups and downs and drama than any Mexican soap or Niger movie that we know. Like it's just drama upon drama.